Meeting of the Board of Education to order. Roll call.
Mrs. Bissinger.
Here.
Mr. Fruman.
Here.
Mrs. Hubner.
Here.
Mr. Smith.
Here.
Dr. Heiss.
Here. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to thank everyone for coming. Our safety briefing. Interestingly, on our executive content, it says that there is 4 emergency exits in this room. I know of 2 off to the left.
There's 3.
Oh, we have one on the back and then one in the corner. I still try and incorporate the windows in, but keep getting shut down. So anyway, next up, motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Tepfer?
Mrs. Bissinger.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Fruman.
Yes.
Mrs. Hubner.
Yes.
Dr. Heiss.
Yes. Next up, approval of minutes from our special meeting October 1st.
So moved. Second.
Mr. Tepfer?
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Fruman.
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger.
Yes.
Mrs. Hubner.
Yes.
Dr. Heiss.
Yes. Approval of minutes from our special meeting October 16th.
So moved. Second.
Mr. Tepfer?
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Fruman.
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger.
Yes.
Mrs. Hubner.
Yes.
Dr. Heiss.
Yes. And now approval of minutes from our last regular meeting on October 22nd.
So moved. Second.
Mr. Tepfer?
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Fruman.
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger.
Yes.
Mrs. Hubner.
Yes.
Dr. Heiss.
Yes. Correspondence, the superintendent,
I don't have any correspondence.
treasurer, board. Next up, this procedures for public commentary. This is not a public meeting, but a meeting held in public. We do welcome, though, your comments. There is a note cards up front. You can fill out a note card, and I will call on you at that appropriate time. Next up, commendations and recognitions. Natasha?
It is my privilege this evening to share with you about Olivia Connaughton. She is a Nagel student, an 8th grader, who is known as the Ohio's fastest girl. And Olivia Connaughton, you should write it down because this is not the last time that you're going to see this name because she is so outstanding. She's a long distance runner who broke a record with 11:20 and became Ohio's fastest girl this fall. And one of the most notable things is in the Nagel meets that she ran in this year, she beat the record at every meet that we had. So we're very proud and would like to have the board today commend Olivia Connaughton for her outstanding achievement and distinction, and we'd like to present her with a certificate tonight to honor her. So Olivia, come on up, and she is here with her parents this evening.
I recommend that we commend Olivia Connaughton for her outstanding achievement and distinction in running. Olivia? Second.
Mrs. Bissinger.
Yes.
Mrs. Hubner.
Yes.
Mr. Fruman.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Dr. Heiss.
Yes.
Great work.
And Olivia is running off to basketball practice now because she is 5 minutes late, so thank you.
Is she excused for this? Is that?
I told her it was okay, that it wasn't considered rude.
No, usually not. Congratulations, that's awesome.
Dr. Heiss,
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
when I heard of this, of Olivia's achievement, and when we talk about her being the fastest girl in Ohio, she was also awarded a trophy that is about this tall for not only being the fastest girl in our division, so to speak, or our conference and so on and so forth. She was the fastest girl in all of the different areas in the state of Ohio. And actually, you know, I don't know why, but I thought to myself, well, I definitely want to go meet this young lady, so I went right over to Nagel Middle School, and again, I was expecting a taller version of somebody that, wow, it's really out there. And Olivia stood up, and it's just amazing, as you saw, that she is so fast, and what she did was amazing. And I think we will be looking and seeing some really great things from her in the future.
Absolutely.
She's so driven, not only athletically, but also academically.
Great. Well, that is impressive. All right. Okay, public comments. It's your chance. All right, there's no cards. District updates from the superintendent.
Yes, Dr. Heisen, board, I have a few, and forgive me, but I did want to share, most recently, several board members and myself attended the Ohio School Board Association's Capital Conference. And one of the opportunities that I had was to listen and speak with Michael Sawyers, who's our acting director, state superintendent of public education. I just wanted to share a few things with the board. And again, you don't have to take notes. I can give these to you. And this is just like the first page of the notes that I took as Dr. Sawyers, or Mr. Sawyers, I believe, shared with us. First of all, some notable points, which are some very important points that the state of Ohio received a $70 million grant for K-3 kindergarten readiness. Some of these funds will be made available through the Competitive Early Learning Challenge grants. Now, the word competitive is there. Okay, so you'd think, wow, $70 million that a district like Forest Hills might be able to tap into at least a little bit of that. Chances are no. But we are looking at it. Megan and I have been looking at that, and we're even looking, in fact, Megan, I'll call Dr. Sawyers actually said to make sure that if you're going to apply, to try to do it collaboratively with other school districts, and that's what we're trying to do, because he said that that was the first priority. But moving right along. Ohio is also processing the developing of a new early learning standards in conjunction with the state of Maryland. A new crawl, which is the kindergarten readiness assessments for literature, is being developed and will include numeracy and social emotional development assessments for kindergarten. Moving on, the third grade reading guarantee. Retention rules are currently in place for 2012 and 13 school year. A new retention rules completely following those will be available for the 2013 and 14 school year. In September of each year, the school must administer a diagnostic test in third grade, yet to be developed. There will be a posted list of assessments that will be available for us in the spring, because they may not have those tests developed quickly, and we might be able to use some of the assessments that we're currently doing, but we're not sure. Districts must report publicly the number of students that are on track for fourth grade reading. So again, we have to report publicly those things. There will be a new generation of assessments coming down the pike. In grades 3 through 8, all students will be tested in math and English language arts assessments being developed by PARC. They're not developed yet. The state will be developing tests for 5th and I think it's 8th grade for science, and also 4th and 6th grade for social studies. These will rotate every other year. Cut scores will be established for the end of high school English 1, 2, and 3 for freshmen, sophomores, and juniors, and high school 9th, 10th, 10th, and 11th grade. And of course, exams will also be given for math, algebra 1, geometry, algebra 2. And of course, tests for physical science and biology were developed in 2014 and 15, and also then in American history and American geography assessments, they're being developed, but it'll still be determined when they will be given. And of course, exams will be required in all those subjects in the year 2014-15. They will be constitute 20 to 30% of the final course grade for a student. Current OGT is phasing out. End of course exams will take its place. There will be a new test, though, for 10th graders for college and career readiness. It will be a national scored test, maybe like the current plan or the PSAT, kind of that kind of assessment. It will be administered by the state, developed by the state, and hopefully paid for by the state. The new report card will show letter grades from A through F, and that will begin in 2013. Also, between 2013 and 2015, there will be a 3-year phase-in for the different requirements for the new report card. The new report card will rank per pupil expenditures by district, from the least to the most expensive per district. Students will have to score at what is now accelerated or advanced levels to be considered on track. Currently, that's proficient. So think of that. And the state auditor, on a little different topic, the state auditor is looking to officially publish the 2010 and 11 report cards the one that we unofficially got the results for a couple weeks ago, in December. I also had the opportunity while I was there to network with different professionals regarding a number of different topics, one of which that I was excited about, and I've worked with a lot of these different organizations in the past, was a new company that's currently conducting some different comprehensive surveys for graduates, that they will look at graduates in a school district and a high school over a period of several years to tell us their success, what they're doing, what their achievements have been, what year in college, if they graduated college, all those types of things. So the reason I bring that up is because that is part of our strategic plan, is to look at developing and moving ahead in that area. Now, I'm sorry that took quite a while to say, but I just wanted to share with you some of those kind of important things that Michael Sawyer's shared with us, and that was just the first 5 minutes, I think, of his talk, and many more. I would also like, as a district update, to share that we are currently in the process of developing a school district community survey. I shared with the board a draft of that survey. The survey, our goal, or my goal, is that we should always strive to deliver the kind of educational excellence that our community and our school district expects. And we hope to learn through the responses of this survey what are the most important attributes of a high-performing school district like Forest Hills to our community, and then that go beyond the traditionally found on the state and or national report cards. So we will be getting that out in the very near future, and then we'll make sure that our community is aware of that survey, and as of right now, it'll be an online survey for them. I would like to say that I'd like to congratulate all of our fall sports and our music and band programs for finishing their seasons. In fact, Turpin finished its season just last Friday night as they advanced deep into the state playoffs. So congratulations to all of them, and you met Olivia tonight and some of the great things that our kids are achieving. I want to wish the best of luck to the students who are now trying out and in the process of beginning to train for our winter sports, as well as mock trials and academics and those kinds of things that will be going on this winter. So with that, that's kind of the board report for the month. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just add something real quick? Your comment, I think, is important about not just the athletic, but also our drama.
Oh.
Both Turpin
Oh.
and Anderson put on some outstanding productions here in the last 2 weeks. And one of our own board members has a star in the Anderson production. So, Julie, congratulations.
Thank you.
That's great.
It was fun.
Okay.
Okay. Next up, we have from the Forest Hills Teacher Association, a presentation by Donna Lawver and Dr. Jackson.
Dr. Jackson. Good evening. I'm not really used to a microphone. I'm used to projecting my voice pretty well, so I'll give it the best here. Again, my name is Donna Lawver, and I'm the current president with the Forest Hills Teacher Association. I also teach 8th grade at Nagel Middle School, and I think I know most of you well. Some of you have had your kids, and some of you I haven't had the chance to meet yet. I've worked with lots of different people throughout the district, and we have a lot of new changes and so forth, and I appreciate all the support I've received from Dr. Jackson. And tonight I felt it was really essential for the board to have a connection to faces and volunteers who work behind the scenes to make our school district a great collaborative workplace for everyone, and to provide you a little history about us as well as the intents for our future. Tonight's kind of an interesting night, as November 19th. Some of you know, looks like our crowd's not as large as it can be, but it's elementary school conferences this evening, so the majority of my staff, as far as the executive board, are actually working tonight, which is good too. So I want to give them a little intro here with that. First of all, we have 2 vice presidents this year. First is Wendy Chalk from Wilson Elementary, Stacy Moyer, who's a vice president with Summit Elementary. Our treasurer, has been with us a couple years, is Mr. Michael Roberts at Ayer Elementary. Our secretary, Amy Haskins, at Maddox Elementary. We created a new position just this past year to help us with, just as you all have done here, to work with a little bit more of our communication. So we have our own website and so forth. John Farmer is taking good care of that at Ayer Elementary. And I do believe I have one person that's available for your evening here is Mr. Dan Armstrong. He's our delegate by virtue. He serves in our capacities at Anderson High School, and he serves to go to all of our state meetings and our regional sessions for us on our behalf. We also have some of our Turpin, it's Turpin night here tonight, so some of our teachers from that building. We have approximately, right now, we have 44 building reps throughout the 9 buildings in the district. So if you look at our staff altogether, there's about 52 people that are working behind the scenes to help communicate and keep things moving, and working especially with our HR department as well as some other areas to keep us, working collaboratively. I thought I would give you a little history about us. And the Forest Hills Teachers Association has been in the district functioning since 1982, and it strives to create a working relationship with the board and the administration to enhance the working and learning atmosphere within the Forest Hills School District. The history of the association in the district reveals itself to be very supportive and respectful, and hence my intent as president is to continue with this direction. With that being said, we do know public schools are always a constant discussion in today's political agenda. Our school's no different in that capacity. However, it is important to note a 12-year record of excellence, that there is no doubt the strength of the Forest Hills comes from a dedicated workforce in the classroom. Regardless of the introduction of technology into the classroom, the lack of funding, increased expectations of testing, just as Dr. Jackson mentioned, all these new lovely tests coming our way, and many, many unfunded mandates throughout the years as I've listened to the board through these months together, the changes in all the regulations and laws. Having a very solid effective classroom teacher has provided a lot of great results over the past 12 years, and probably much longer than I've been here, many of us together. Educational research does establish one true data constant when it comes to a child's learning, and that is an effective classroom teacher, which I think we're very privileged here in Forest Hills to have. It's proven itself. With that being said, the teachers in this district are aware of the supportive community, and the district provides itself as being a district of destination. We've been very privileged throughout the years to be able to attract some of the best teachers in our community and throughout the state and in the tri-state. The Forest Hills Teachers Association would like to encourage the board to be aware of the need to continue a collaborative working environment. The association serves in a larger role than just collective bargaining. It was established to create an atmosphere of mutual respect and allow for teachers to be active participants in their workplace. Over 30 years ago, as I read our history a little bit, there was a group of teachers that worked with the board to establish this association that wanted more than just being a bargaining organization. They wanted to be part of an ongoing educational journey of the district, along with the board, administration, and the families with which they would be working with daily. So it was really intent many, many years ago that we would continue in this capacity. And as things, are challenging in society, I think we're very privileged as our school district to have that much insight from many years ago to keep us moving in the right direction collaboratively and working together. I know I'm available for some any comments or questions, and Dr. Jackson, I know, wants to add a few things.
First of all, I'd like to thank Donna for coming this evening. And Donna and I have been working together. We've talked about coming and talking together to the Board of Education. But first of all, I would like to thank the Turpin staff, of some of the teacher representatives here, and also Dan, our executive board member, who's the lone executive board member that's here today. And I think it was very important that our Board of Education, over the next several months, get to know some of the names and faces of some of our teacher leaders in our district. It is very important that there's this collaborative working relationship that we continue. And as Donna said, I think each and every month that we're going to be asking different teachers from our different buildings to come, just like the Turpin staff did tonight, just to, so that we can greet and thank them and for all the great things that they do. With that said, we want to continue the collaborativeness together that the board and the teachers and the administration have continued to work on over the past years. And with that said, again, I just want to thank Donna for everything that she's done as far as her leadership in this role, and really am glad to be a partner with her and the teachers of our great district. I tell you, I've not been associated with a greater number of fine individuals as I have most recently had the opportunity of meeting and working with, and that's here at Forest Hills. Thank you, Donna.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you coming. Yeah, just chatting. All right. Next up, student services. We have the 2013-2014 calendar. Phil?
Thank you. We're presenting the 2013-14 school district calendar, which you have a copy at your seat. And before it's recommended for approval, I'd just like to go through a few of the highlights with you. As you can see, the school year is starting at approximately the same time as we have in the past number of years, and in first day of school, August 21st. I do want to point out in October, it's a new addition to the calendar where we are, October 21st, we are looking at a fall holiday and an extended weekend in the middle of October. When you take a look at the winter holiday break, it's a pretty extensive one, from last day of school being December 20th and not returning to classes till January the 6th. The traditional national holidays and spring break, and one thing at the end of the school year, graduation is being proposed to be June 1st, which is different than we have in the past where we have had it the week before that. So June 1st for graduation, with the last day of school being June 4th. We have the 2-hour, four 2-hour delayed start dates and the conferences and all of the other grading period information also attached. So we are recommending the 2013-14 calendar as presented. And if there's any questions or comments from Dr. Jackson or from the board.
What was the genesis of the fall holiday? I understand spring, that's Good Friday, but fall I didn't understand.
I'd like to address that, Mr. Smith. If this particular calendar, as compared to the last couple of years' calendar, is a little different in regards to, we'll begin with the graduation at the end of the year, and then we'll work backwards. Traditionally, at least the last few years, graduation has been over Memorial Day holiday. When you do that, and you try to fit in the 185 days of school calendar and everything that is entailed with that, it really does compact what you can do. This year, and when you're looking at the holiday break in December in particular, and you realize where those dates fall, that had we tried to stick with their traditional calendar as we've done the last couple years, that would have meant we would have brought our students back on a Thursday in early January for 2 days. We thought that many parents would probably have chosen to maybe extend their vacation a couple extra days if they needed to be back for that. So with that thought in mind, that's also this year and the following, this currently 13 or 14, and it's also will be difficult on 14, 15. So we looked at moving graduation up or back a week to the first week of June. When we did that, then you can see that allows us a little bit of flexibility throughout the calendar. In our traditional calendars over the last several years, from the beginning of school and primarily until the Thanksgiving break, was pretty much a straight shot for our kids, our students, our teachers, and our staff, without, quite frankly, any breaks. And I'm not saying that a break is necessarily necessary, but at the same time, this allowed us to say, you know what, it might be good for lots of reasons to somewhere in late October to have an opportunity for just a fall holiday type of day. Okay. So by placing that date, and that was your question, and I'm sorry, it's a very long answer, wasn't it, for your question, but that's why we were able to put the date in there, is if you take a look, we would have been the last 2 weeks of August, all the way through September, all the way through October, and all the way through November without any break for our students. So that's why we decided to put a date in there.
Second thing I wanted to ask about is one that I hear from parents all the time. It's, have we minimized the number of 2-hour delayed starts? It comes up all the time. Some people would be...
This is the first year for 2-hour delayed starts. In previous years, we had approximately 9 delayed starts or early dismissals. So we consolidated that this year for the first time to 4, and they're all delayed start dates, everybody across the district, K through 12, and that's what is proposed for next year also.
So that's positive for all those
Very
people,
positive.
the parents who are concerned, it's a better deal than.
And that 2 hours gives us a greater length of time to actually provide some quality professional development for our staff. Rather than the number of 1 hours, it's just by the time you get there and you get into the gist of what you're doing, it's time to go. And it's very difficult for different buildings to meet together in that time period, whereas a 2-hour concentrated amount of time allows us to achieve a lot more. So fewer, but longer.
Last question is graduation. Now that we've moved off Memorial Day weekend, is it possible, since it is on a Sunday, to start it afternoon, to not start it before noon, the traditional church time?
We are in discussions with the
Northern Kentucky.
University of Northern Kentucky, where we currently hold our graduation ceremonies. It is their requirement that 2 graduations in the same day have a amount of time in between those graduations. And so that is currently why we have the 11 and the 3 o'clock times. They need that amount of time after the first graduation to prepare for the second graduation. Now, we are in discussions with them, and Peggy and I are still working on that, of possibly seeing if there's a possibility of maybe moving the first graduation to 12 and then keeping the second at 3.
Is there somebody behind us still? Is there
No.
a third graduation that day? Okay.
Well, that's,
'Cause I think
not that
was
I'm
a-
aware of.
We have not. We've only had, since we've been at Bank of Kentucky, there's just been 2. We have asked in the past that we not have that big of a spread in between. That's their requirement for change-up. But since we're from the same district and we're essentially the same size graduating class, which we weren't in the past, they really don't have to move anything for us. They have to roll up one banner, drop another banner. So we've requested that again. That is their
She's frank.
contractual movement, their employees though, in terms of so.
Is there an issue with starting the second one
Well,
later?
we could go 12, we asked them for, as Dr. Jackson said, could we go 12 and 4? I have not gotten a response yet
Okay.
from them. We have requested that, but again, it will depend if they have an evening graduation already scheduled for the June 1st date for the next 2 years that we have scheduled with them on that weekend. So we wait to hear from them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's, no further question. I would like to thank my grammar and punctuation expert, Tracy, who really helps me with all of the details of the calendar. It's recommended the board approve the 2013-14 calendar as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Tepfer?
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mr. Fruman?
Yes.
Mrs. Hubner?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes. And next up is the residency waiver.
Yes, there's a motion to approve a residency waiver for Turpin High School senior Haley Walbling, I'm sorry. Request is made to the board by her parents to approve a residency waiver for Haley. She's a senior. Her parents have just moved out of the district. She'd like to continue and graduate from Turpin High School. It's recommended the board approve the residency waiver for Haley Walbling, Turpin High School senior for the 2013 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Tepfer?
Mr. Fruman?
Yes.
Mrs. Hubner?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, curriculum, outdoor education program. Connie?
Right, we are asking the board to approve the dates as listed in the agenda and the fee, which has remained the same for the past 5 years for Camp Kern 2013. This, as noted in your agenda, also is the 42nd year for this outdoor education program.
Fantastic. All right, can I get a motion?
Yeah, move to approve the Camp Kern.
Second.
Mr. Tepfer?
Mr. Fruman?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mrs. Hubner?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes, thank you. Next up, a human resources report. Tammy?
Good evening. In your Human Resources report tonight, we have a number of items. First on the agenda would be a retirement of Ann Roberts, the principal at Wilson Elementary School. She's been with the district for 6 years, and that retirement will be effective January 31st, 2013. And Ann is with us this evening, so. Disability retirement, item B, Nancy Infante, 17 years with Forest Hills. Another retirement, Linda Stanley,
25 years, Forest Hills Secretary of the Food Service Department. Her resignation will be effective January 31st, 2013. We have other resignations here. We see non-teaching staff of our varsity boys basketball coach at Turpin. Item F, with the retirement of Dr. Roberts, it is a recommendation that Robert or Bob Buck move to the from elementary assistant principal to elementary principal at Wilson, effective February 1st. Item G, we see some changes of assignment for our staff. Item H, we do have a change of salary. Items J, K, L, and M are all appointments. I would just note under item J, classified staff, Melanie Lawrence, the Maddox half-time kindergarten aide, that is 40% Title I funded through federal funds. Moving on to item K, 24/7, we see several of the recommendations there to hire for this program that is funded through the Forest Hills Foundation. We always want to thank them for that, their great support of our district. Continuing on, you see on page 4 a number of additional recommendations to hire: time work beyond contract, additional support. On page 5, we see item L, and these are the appointments of our coaches or advisors. Item M, our substitute personnel. I'll give you just a moment to look through those. And just letting the board know that since the last board meeting, October 22nd, we have had a slight increase in our FTE, 0.83. Part of that is the kindergarten aid that I mentioned earlier, and there are also some adjustments in our bus transportation routes, which it seems like we have a lot of that in the fall. And so our staffing level now stands at 766.35 FTE. It is recommended that the board approve the Human Resources Report as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
The 40% Title I, how did we get 40%? Because I thought that was typically funded at much less than.
No, it's for that one person. What we are doing, Title I funding, and you'll see in the next board agenda, we are looking at some additional support at the elementary level. Our Title I funding for this year came in a little bit higher than it traditionally had, and there were some requirements with that as well.
So we assigned that money.
So we assigned
Okay.
that person because that aide's particular responsibilities will be working with interventions for English language arts and particular for math. Math, sorry, got it, it's close. For math at the kindergarten level, and so we can fund part of that position with some of those funding.
Yeah, I wasn't questioning the position, I understood that.
Sure,
I
just how we
was
did that.
Glad to hear about
Yeah.
the funding.
Mhm.
Okay.
And again, next month, it probably will be bringing a couple other aids to
Yes.
your attention as well, that, again, are funded totally, wholly through the Title I funding. So will be nothing, no additional expenses coming from the general revenue fund, but at the same time, our FTE numbers will go up a little bit, but the bottom line stays the same.
I just have one quick comment, and not to say goodbye yet, because I'm not going to do that. We're not going to do that, but
No, we're
it
not.
is, it has been a joy to have you as our principal, and Bob, I just want to congratulate you as well in your new assignment. You worked very hard to devote your life to the district, and it's exciting for both of you.
And I was going to say something as well, Julie, because I have some notes for Ann that I was going to say, and wait a minute, she's still got a couple months with us. I'm going to hold off for a little while.
We
So
won't sign
stay
off on her
tuned.
yet, yeah.
And congratulations, Bob. Thank you.
Mr. Tupper?
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Fruman?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mrs. Hubner?
I have to abstain.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes. Okay, next, thank you. Next up, Treasurer Report.
Yeah, item 12.1 is a modified tax budget. This is I think the third year, the second year we're actually, the county's asking us to pass a resolution. I guess revised code is very specific about what needs to be included in the tax budget, but with the 5-year forecast being the most useful tool we have, this resolution allows us to use the 5-year forecast as part of that process. So as recommended, the board adopt the resolution in item 12.1 requesting authority from the Hamilton County Budget Commission to file a modified tax budget for the 13-14 fiscal year.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Tepfer?
Mr. Freeman.
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger.
Yes.
Mrs. Hubner.
Yes.
Mr. Smith.
Yes.
Dr. Heiss.
Yes. Tax budget calendar?
This item, I received an email from Mr. Smith about possible change due to some being out of town of our organizational meeting. So before we ask the approval of the budget calendar, I thought I would ask if the board would be okay switching that just January 7th organizational meeting to January 4th, which is a Friday. Time could be at your choice. Either we could do a morning or an evening, which is what this was. Typically a relatively short meeting as we organize for the 2013 year. So I thought I would ask that before we ask the board to approve this calendar, because it has that item on it several times.
I'm flexible.
Yeah, I'm fine anytime.
Do you need a time in this also?
We will.
I mean, for what we have to pass right now?
I think an item coming up that is specifies.
Morning? I don't care, but we need to pick
Yeah, we
one.
can do
We
it.
know you like morning.
Yeah, well, that's
Yeah.
okay.
If we're going to do it in the morning,
Yes.
the earlier the
7
better.
Right.
7?
Quarter till 6.
I'll be here.
We do 7?
All right.
7's fine.
Okay.
Good.
Okay, so
Dennis, that's-
That'll be fine, sure.
So if you could drop in the December 4th date in this budget calendar, that's as part of item 12.2. As recommended, the board approve the amended 13-14 budget calendar as outlined in 12.2 with 7 a.m. January 4th dropped in wherever you see January 7th.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Tepfer?
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Fruman?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mrs. Hubner?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes.
Thank you all.
No problem.
You, 12.3, if you remember, a year ago, we asked the board to approve kind of a leap of faith as we moved to a self-insurance of our workers' compensation. Had pretty good data that we would save significant dollars, and pleased to report that we, as we finish our first year, 12/1/11 to 11/30 of 12, our estimated savings, including a pretty reasonable reserve for the few claims that we have, has us the annual savings of over $211,000. We hope to get that every year. A lot of things go into that. Our staff, safe behaviors and safe facilities, that's where it's at. And, special thanks to, Ray, Bob Vanderwood, custodians, maintenance, all the folks that make slips, trips, and falls are what drives that number. And if we don't have them, we save money. And so special thanks to them. And really, this item is, the next year of that, approval of another claims management services agreement with our partner Sedgwick, as well as kind of a blanket of insurance excess coverage for any catastrophic issue we would have. So as recommended, the board approve the following items effective 12/1/12 through November 30th of 13. Number one is to approve the addendum to the service agreement for the administration of claims with Sedgwick Claims Management Service, Inc., and the approval of the excess workers' compensation insurance with Star Insurance Company with our partner Gallagher and Schiff Kreidler Shell.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Yeah, Rick, the money we're paying for the state fund runoff claims, do we have any cost for those state fund claims from going from state fund to self-insurance?
Yeah, we still have some claims that are out there, and they are our partner in managing those claims. And the numbers significantly reduced this year because obviously some of those claims have dropped off.
No, I understand we have some claims. I'm just wondering, going from state fund to self-insured, is there any cost? We're not paying the premium, we're paying
Just the premium, just the cost.
for the self-insured.
That's funded by the state, to answer your question. I think, we don't have any, we had a payment of loose ends last year, which was a small payment, but there is, part of being in the state fund is, that covers it. This is covering the administration of the claims, but we don't
Of the
have any
state fund
of the state
claims.
fund claims.
Mr. Dever?
Mr. Fruman?
Yes.
Mrs. Hubner?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes.
Item 12.4 is our report. Item A, list of donations, significant donations. You see in Maddox PTA specifically, over $11,000 in computers, as again, our partners have continued to help us. In item B, we have the statement of board accounts. We have 2 funds that we're actually waiting for federal dollars, but we have money to cover that per the required negative balance criteria. In item C, we have our general fund receipts, and we have received lower 45% of our projected revenue. We have received a TIF payment, a little bit smaller than our average of almost 47%. But overall, our 5-year average at this time of the year is in, right at 45%, so we're okay there. And item D and E, we have the kind of a snapshot of our expenditures. Where 32% of our annual appropriations have been spent at month end, a little bit higher than our 3-year average. At this time of the fiscal year. In item F, we have the monthly bank reconciliations. G, our list of investments. H, we have 3 funds that have decreased appropriations, a little over $182,000. Item I, we're asking for approval of board service fund expenses. And closing a student activity fund account in J. And in K, we're asking for approval of transferring fiscal year 12 funds to fiscal year 13 projects. As I said, I recapped the Business Advisory Committee information in the fiscal report, so hopefully that was helpful to kind of see who the people were and what their expertise was. We've had some really good discussions and a lot more ahead, but really a quality group. And if you happen to know any of those people, reach out to them, because they are very, very active, and they appreciate the help they provide in guidance moving forward. As recommended, the board approve this report as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Dever? Oh, discussion, sure.
You mentioned the TIF, that being 10% of our revenue, and it's at 44, are we good there? Something that's 10% of our revenue, a couple points are
No, I mean,
significant.
it's a little concerning, but I think it's not 10%, but there is some a little bit of a percent or two. But this also occurred last year to some degree, where these are the groups that were as a TIF parcel, are the ones that were to be developed, and they're the ones that have actually taken some of the bigger hits with the economic turn that we have. We're actually having a TIF meeting coming up with the township, and to kind of look at those. But as I said, we are, I think that group also has a little bit higher than average number of our delinquencies and those that are actually late pays at the moment.
I wondered if that was going to impact us by the end of the year.
They are, and just to kind of, 1,000 feet up, we do manage all those claims. I mean, we do, from a Board of Revision standpoint, fight for every commercial claim we can. And, we have our board attorney that works with us on that. So,
But bottom line, no reason to be alarmed.
at the moment, no.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. It's staying on the radar, though.
Yes.
All right, Mr. Dever?
Mr. Fruman?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mrs. Hubner?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes.
Thank you.
Next up is treasurer job description. And that is,
Thank you. Consistent with the process we used for the superintendent last year, we are now in the process of being more formal as a board with the evaluation of the treasurer. So the first step in that was to write a current job description, and it was a collaborative process with our consultant, Bill Sears, who helped us through the superintendent's process, Rick himself, and all the board, and I think we met twice. Jim did a lot of the background work, and Rick did as well. And then the 5 of us and Rick met, and Bill Sears, and we came up with, finally, after many reviews and edits, and to where we are tonight with the recommendation for the current job description that you have attached. So, I am recommending that the board approve the job description for treasurer.
Second.
Discussion?
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. You did a great job. Yep, that went very well. Mr.
Mrs.
Tuffer?
Bissinger?
Yes.
Mrs. Huebner?
Yes.
Mr. Fruman?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes. I want to thank Julie for all the work she did with it, too. That was,
Thank you.
It was a yeoman's job, and it went very well. Next up, budget hearing, which is,
This is the change that we made earlier.
Okay.
It kind of defines the organizational meeting so that that date would be changed.
so we now have, we're setting up our organizational meetings for now January 4th at 7 a.m. Everyone is welcome. Join us. Can I get a motion to approve the organizational meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Teffer?
Mr. Fruman?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mrs. Huebner?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes. Have any board discussion tonight? All right. Next up is the Forest Hills Foundation report. Julie?
Forest Hills Foundation met last week on November 14th, and Forrest S. Heiss has agreed to be the new board president for the Forest Hills Foundation, and we are pleased to have him. A day for today's woman is going to be held on February the 23rd at Nagel from 9 till 3. More on that as time draws nearer. The website for the Forest Hills Foundation is still being revised, and the final revisions are imminent. There is a new employee giving program. I believe it's new. It's called For the Love of Learning, and it's to encourage people that work for the district, obviously the employees, to support the Forest Hills Foundation for Education. Access 24/7, which is a program that Forest Hills Foundation supports, is active in all buildings. In the elementaries, there's targeted intervention for second and third graders, about 10 to 15 kids in each. And there's also enrichment, which is Destination Imagination, which is an awesome program. We haven't had in the district in a while, I don't think.
Only one building.
Oh, I'm sorry, what building is that?
We had Wilson and
Okay.
actually Nago, I think, in this
Okay.
district, too. So it was two
Great.
buildings, had one team.
Yeah, our son was in it years and years ago, our oldest son, he's now a college senior, and it's
I
just
was in it
such a
as well.
great. You were?
I was in it,
Awesome.
and then I coached a team. Yeah.
See? And see what it
Love
did
it.
for you?
Yeah.
Success. So hopefully that will expand as we get more people interested in it, and I guess coaches to coach it. It's a great program. In the middle school, there are approximately 30 to 50 students involved, and the numbers have gone up due to bus service, which is great. High school, we're still focusing on increasing the numbers there. There are students that are targeted for intervention in those programs, but we're still working on that. The last thing I want to tell you is on October the 8th, 2012, and another evening, so about a total period of 12 hours, there was a strategy workshop for those who could attend. 10 board members came, Jim Yunker came, Jim Fruman came, and Dallas came. And it was led by Zeke Swift, and what came out of it was a whole new proposal for how Forest Hills Foundation will move forward from here, and it was voted on at the meeting on November 14th, and it's exciting. Dee presented, and it's exciting. So,
Thank
that's
you.
it. Thank you.
Next up is legislative liaison report.
I've
Andy?
got three things I wanted to report on briefly. One of them is early last week, the Ohio House Education Committee accepted a substitute version of House Bill 555, which is the new report card legislation. And that is being worked right now. It'll make changes to Ohio's academic accountability system. Some of the good things is it'll have a dashboard, that's what they're calling it, a number of different measures for people to look at when evaluating various schools and school districts. It's a change from an adequate yearly progress, the AYP measure, to an annual measurable objective, and as a plan to transition to a new system. There was some controversy over whether the state was going to implement the A to F system, and I think they wisely chose to put that off because they would have evaluated us on a program we had not seen, couldn't influence, and yet they were going to use the new system. There are some concerns about this bill, though, just as far as still coming up with some kind of a fair tool to evaluate whether it's A through F or whatever they finally use. So that's still very much in the works. Another bill that will impact potentially our school system is House Bill 543. This is in-service training on youth suicide awareness and prevention. Now, this is a bill that obviously nobody's opposed to, but it will require considerable additional training on the part of our staff. I believe that the materials for this are provided, so we're not paying for materials, but it's a significant it's a requirement. There's accountability as well as training that goes along with it. There was another, the third bill was substitute House Bill 143, and this is another one that nobody's opposed to. This is the one that puts regulations in place for student athletes when they have had a concussion or potentially had a concussion. This is one that will require a significant amount of training. There's record keeping, and Dallas, I can't remember if there were any other hard costs associated with.
Would be training of our staff in recognition of concussion and what to do with those during an event, an athletic event in particular. And on that note, that we have some of this that already in place and beginning, in fact, we've already implemented it for this winter season as we are doing an impact concussion testing of students in the middle school and the high school that are involved in the winter sports, in particular wrestling and basketball, both females and males. And then in the fall, of course, will be football and cross country, and then some of the larger in the spring as well, the track. And our goal is to every 2 years do this impact testing with students so that when there is the possibility of a concussion that occurred, that we can look at the data of the healthy child as compared to the data that we're seeing at that time and make some better diagnostics as to what to do from that point.
I mean, the idea behind impact testing is you get your baseline test initially, and then that way you can test them because it gives you an idea of a change because that's what you're looking for. So.
Okay, thank you. I'm not surprised we're on a cutting edge. And again, these are the last two in particular. They're good things, but it's just layering on more regulation, more time, and the cost of the training for these activities. There was no action from last month because I mentioned piece of legislation that was being considered, and I didn't get a call from OSBA, so I didn't wind up going up to Columbus on that one. Last thing I wanted to mention is after attending the OSBA Capital Conference, it was somewhat concerning, maybe even alarming, the focus that is being put through legislation and other areas on, well, some of the speakers called it an attack on public education in Ohio, and the attempts to privatize and really change the system that we know and we know is working in Forest Hills. It was just concerning for anybody else who was up there. Might, if you have anything you want to add, but I think we're kind of insulated here in Forest Hills, but there's a real effort to pull money away from public education and spend it in a different way. And I'm not saying that they're all wrong, but it's just it's something that is going to impact us at some point. I know I've talked about competing for students. Well, we may be needing to market better, do a better job at doing that. And I know, Dallas, you've got a program that you're working on, but it's just something I want to point out that we all need to be very aware of because those changes will have a major impact on Forest Hills if they're implemented. Anybody else who was at Capital Conference or want to comment?
Yeah, about half the sessions were on vouchers and charter schools.
And it seems like the impetus is the inner city schools, and that's where schools are failing, and they can show that that's what there's a problem, so we need a solution. Of course, they don't look at high-performing districts and say, okay, how would the solution for the schools that are in trouble impact the schools that are not in trouble or are actually doing a great job?
Well, the other thing they do is the assumption is that if we give them vouchers, if we have charter schools, those will be a better alternative, and that's not necessarily true.
Right.
In fact, we know from looking at some of those that more often than not, it's not true. We need is better schools throughout the entire state, regardless of whether they're charter or not. That's besides the point.
There was one session where the chair of the House Education Committee and the chair of the Senate Education Committee were there, and they pointed out what you just mentioned about failing urban schools. And the problem there, and I did have a chance to talk with both of them after the session, is that works for those parents who are A, present, and B, willing to do something for their children. That works for them, but what you're left is the children who have nobody that cares for them. I know that sounds unthinkable in Forest Hills, but that's what's happening in the urban school districts. And it's not a solution. That's part of the problem. And the point being, if it's rolled out to Forest Hills, they're solving a problem that doesn't exist here. And but anyway, thank you. That's all I had.
Thank you. Okay, executive session?
I move that we go into executive session for, prepare for, conduct, or review collective bargaining strategy and potentially appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion or compensation of a public employee or official.
All right. Mr. Duffer?
Mrs. Bissinger?
Yes.
Mr. Fruman?
Yes.
Mrs. Hubner?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Dr. Heiss?
Yes. We'll bring out the next regular meeting of the Board of Education is December 17th, 2012. We do not anticipate any other discussion after our executive session. Thank you, everybody, for coming, and again, I invite you to our organizational meeting at 7 a.m. on Friday, January 4th. Thank you for coming.